We're currently 4 episodes deep into the final season of Better Call Saul, and to make watching the season a bit more interesting, I'm going to talk about the Season 6 bingo card I made. I originally made this a few months ago before we knew basically anything about the upcoming season, so I've updated some of the squares to reflect the knowledge we currently have, which as of this recording is the first 4 episodes of the season. I originally had squares that were regarding Nacho's fate and the possible inclusion of Walt and Jesse, but now that those have been confirmed, I've replaced them with more relevant predictions. Better Call Saul theme song plays in full. This one obviously has parallels with Breaking Bad, since that didn't use the theme song in the actual show until the second last episode. Better Call Saul also hasn't used its theme yet, and I think it's pretty much inevitable that they'll do it at some point, since the song is a pretty good one. Obviously they could just copy Breaking Bad and have it play when Gene decides to put the Saul outfit back on to do one last lawyer stunt, but I've always had the feeling they're going to use it in some sort of montage that shows a big time skip to the Breaking Bad era, kind of like the Something Stupid montage from Season 4. Return of Pryce. I'm holding out hope for this one. Daniel Wormold is probably the standout side character from the early seasons of the show, but we haven't seen him since Season 3. Season 6 already brought back the Kettlemans from Season 1, so surely we can get some sort of reason for Pryce to show up again. Walt and Jesse during Breaking Bad. Obviously we already know that Walt and Jesse are going to show up at some point during this season, thanks to the Better Call Saul Twitter just randomly dropping confirmation about a week before the premiere, so I want to talk about the specifics of how I think they'll be involved. I think there's absolutely no way either of them are going to appear during the current 2004 timeline, since it would just be incredibly forced no matter what they do, like the stupid car wash theory people have been saying since the show started. They're 100% going to appear when the show gets to the Breaking Bad timeline, whenever that is. Probably during the back end of the season. I'm predicting that they'll be in a couple scenes spread out throughout 2 episodes of the season. One scene of just Walt, one scene with just Jesse, and 1 or 2 with both of them together. We will see them interact with Saul and Mike, but not any other characters. In terms of what these scenes would be, I think there's a good chance they flesh out some aspects of Breaking Bad but we didn't entirely get to see, mainly Brock's poisoning. We never got to see Walt convincing Saul to go through with that plan. We only hear Saul's brief mention of it when Jesse has him at gunpoint. I think this would be pretty cool to see and wouldn't just be a useless cameo to Car Wash. In terms of what Jesse could add to the story, I don't really know. Probably some kind of final closure with Mike, even though they already kinda did that in El Camino. We also didn't see Saul's reaction to Mike's death, so that's another thing they could do. I've also seen some people suggest that the Cinnabon era scenes take place during the 6-month gap when Walt was in New Hampshire, and that Walt will find Gene on his way back to Albuquerque for some sort of side quest, which just sounds stupid. Howard wins. Kim and Jimmy are currently on a tirade against Howard, and I have a feeling it's not going to work out well for them in the end. I'm hoping that Howard will manage to figure out what they're doing and get the upper hand somehow, maybe by taking them to court. This could tie into what many fans have theorized about Kim being in prison during Breaking Bad, but we'll have to see how that turns out. Kim goes to prison. Building off what I just talked about, Kim's status during Breaking Bad is easily the most talked about aspect of people's predictions. I don't think she's going to die, and I doubt she was living with Saul in that extravagant house we saw in the start of Season 6. So what seems most likely to me is that she's in prison. It could be because of a Howard thing, or it could be something else entirely, but I'm putting my stake into the ground and saying that she is 100% not dead. Gus confirmed gay. I talked about the gay Gus theory in my previous video, and since they kept dropping hints about some unknown Gus backstory in Season 5, it seems like the stage is set for Gus to finally come out of that glass closet and give us the confirmation we've all been waiting for. Episode titled Breaking Bad. I came up with this one before we knew any of the episode titles for Season 6, and with them doing the whole blank and blank thing, it seems less likely that we're going to get an episode called Breaking Bad, which is probably a good thing in retrospect since it would be pretty corny. There is a chance that the current title convention is only for the first half of the season, and the second half will be more normal, which I hope is the case because I've always preferred one-word titles. Mike vs. Lalo fight scene. Fight scenes aren't something that Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul are particularly known for, and whenever they do happen it's usually just embarrassing to watch. But Lalo is going to die at some point, and Mike seems like the most likely candidate to kill him. Obviously I'm not expecting an MCU type brawl or anything, especially considering Mike is 198 years old. But I do think some sort of standoff is definitely on the cards. I would have nominated Nacho as the one to kill Lalo, but that seems highly unlikely now. Kubi shows up. This one is basically an inevitability at this point. Kubi was already supposed to appear in Season 5, but couldn't because Bill Burr had scheduling issues. The only way I don't see him being in Season 6 is if there's some more scheduling conflicts or if the writers just kind of forgot about him. Nacho's dad finds out. Now that we know Nacho dies, I'm wondering if his dad will ever officially find out about it. I think it's likely that at some point Mike will go to Nacho's father, sit him down, and tell him about Nacho's death, but with some altered details obviously. He would probably say something about how Nacho died on his own terms or something like that. Lalo kills Nacho's father. This is like the darkest timeline version of events. Lalo doesn't know that Nacho is dead, so he could still go on a murderous rampage as revenge for being betrayed by him, which would put Nacho's dad right in his crosshairs. I highly doubt this would actually happen though, since it would completely invalidate Nacho's sacrifice. Kim and Jimmy break up. It's been assumed by pretty much everyone since the show started that Kim and Jimmy will end their relationship before Breaking Bad, since we don't hear any mention of her during that era, and Saul often makes sleazy comments about other women. Most people figured that this breakup would be the result of Jimmy's descent into Saul Goodman being too much for Kim and she leaves him. But season 5 really put a hole in that theory when it turns out Kim may end up being just as bad as Saul, if not worse. So now we're all unsure as to whether Kim and Saul are actually going to break up, or if they're still together during Breaking Bad. Me personally, based on how Saul acts in Breaking Bad, I just can't see him still being with Kim during that time, or even that they did have a separation and left things on good terms. I'm expecting some kind of massive blow up between the two, but it won't be because of Saul's shenanigans, it'll be because of Kim's. We've already seen how Jimmy is not entirely confident in the plot against Howard, so there's probably going to be some sort of conflict between the two in that regard. Kind of like the opposite of their debate in Wexler v. Goodman, where instead of Saul being the one to keep pushing the scam, it's Kim. Whatever happens, I'm predicting that Jimmy and Kim will separate in some way, and it's going to leave Saul more jaded than ever, which will then lead right into the personality we see in Breaking Bad. Chuck scene. I feel like there's no way the show can end without us getting one more Chuck scene. I have no idea what the content of such a scene would be, but we got 2 of them in season 4 and then none in season 5, so I'm really hoping we get one more before it all ends. After all, the Chuck and Jimmy stuff was always the best part of the show to me. Kim is the silent partner during Breaking Bad. If Kim isn't in jail or dead during Breaking Bad, then this seems like the only other option to me. This theory is a pretty popular one, and Peter Gould did say that we're going to see Breaking Bad in a different light when we've seen season 6. So it's definitely possible. But like I said before, I just don't see Kim living in that ridiculous house that we see in the cold open. Lalo is alive during Breaking Bad. It's basically a 100% chance that Lalo is going to die at some point. The question is how and when. And I think it would be super cool if Lalo manages to survive up until the Breaking Bad timeline, and is killed during that era. I already mentioned how Peter Gould said we'll see Breaking Bad in a different light, so I think something major has to happen during that time that we weren't aware of, and Lalo's demise seems like a good choice. Ideally it would happen sometime during Breaking Bad season 3 or early season 4, since then it would fit with both Saul thinking Lalo is alive in season 2, and Gus saying all the Salamancas are dead in season 4. Someone says the word chicanery. Better Call Saul introduced many of us to the fabulous word chicanery, which we all know is from Chuck's iconic rant in season 3. I think it would be pretty amusing if some other character says that word at some point, and it would be especially funny if Jimmy says it, for obvious reasons. Happy ending. I know a lot of people are expecting a real downer ending for Jimmy, but I'm feeling a lot more optimistic. I'm very much expecting Kim to show up in the Gene timeline in some capacity, since the story really has been about their relationship from the beginning. It just seems wrong to me for her to be completely gone from the story by the time we get to the finale. So I think a happy ending where Jimmy and Kim reunite would be just wonderful. It probably wouldn't be entirely positive, I'm sure there'll be some sort of consequence for Jimmy by the end of the show, but I highly doubt he's just going to die alone or anything like that. Someone uses the vacuum service. When I originally put this one in the bingo card, I was going under the assumption that Nacho or his father or both of them would be the most likely candidates to use the disappearing service that we've seen Walt, Jesse and Saul use in the past. Now that both of those characters' stories are probably over, it seems doubtful that anyone else would have a need for the service. I've seen some people say that Kim could use it, but that just seems like a cheap cop-out to me. And in general, I'm hoping we don't see the vacuum plot device come up again, since they've done it for 3 different characters now. The film students make the Better Call Saul adverts. Along with Pryce, the film crew that Jimmy's worked with in the previous seasons are the other characters I'm hoping we see return, and they seem a lot more likely since they've been in every other season. It would be really cool to see the behind the scenes of a crew making one of the commercials we saw when Saul was first introduced in Breaking Bad, and what led to the production value being so much worse than what they're capable of. Maybe Saul is paying them less, or maybe they just don't give a shit anymore. The Gene scenes turn into colour. This one seems like an inevitability to me, unless they really want the finale of a show to be entirely black and white. I was trolled into thinking they were going to do it with the opening shot of a season, but obviously that turned out to not be the case. If they want to go super sappy with it, they could have it turn to colour when Jimmy and Kim reunite. I also wouldn't be surprised if when we eventually get back to the Gene plot, the first shot is one that starts in grayscale and then fades into colour, to signify that the plot has finally caught up with the timeline. HHM dissolves. If Kim and Jimmy's plan against Howard does end up coming to fruition, then it's possible this starts a complete downfall of Howard that leads to HHM no longer being a corporate entity. Considering what we find out about Howard's fragile marital status in Season 6 Episode 4, it's likely that his reputation being damaged could push him over the edge, mirroring Chuck's eventual demise in Season 3. However, I don't think Howard will kill himself like some people have speculated. It just seems cheap considering 2 main characters have already died via suicide in the show, and one of those was in this season. Kim is the person calling on November 12th. In Season 4, Episode 5, Quite a Ride, we got a Breaking Bad flash forward to when Saul was packing up his stuff before starting his new life in Nebraska. In this scene, he told Francesca to be at a phone booth on November 12th, which is Jimmy's birthday, at 3 PM. Most people have guessed that the person calling is going to be Kim, and I definitely agree with that. No idea what the context would be though. Perhaps Kim did end up getting a new life, and they only get to talk to each other once every year on Jimmy's birthday. The writers randomly dropped this scene as the cold open for a completely unrelated episode, so it has to be resolved at some point. A bonus thing I want to mention is that Saul gives Francesca an attorney's business card and tells her to say that Jimmy sent her. I know this contradicts my prediction about HHM dissolving, but it would be cool if the lawyer that Jimmy refers her to is Howard. Or maybe the lawyer is Kim, and Howard is actually the one calling on Jimmy's birthday to ask if he's thought about the job offer. Someone says fuck you Jimmy. The phrase fuck you Jimmy has become something of a tradition in the later seasons of the show. In Season 4, Howard says it after Jimmy gives him a motivational speech.
Fuck you Jimmy.
And in Season 5, Kim says it in their breakup turned proposal argument.
Oh, fuck you Jimmy.
Hopefully Season 6 will finish the tradition and have someone else say it. Maybe Mrs. Nguyen, or Clifford Maine, or Howard can say it again. He definitely has a good reason to. Sad ending. While I did just talk about why I think a happy ending is possible, it's just as likely, if not more so, that we get a sad ending. That doesn't necessarily mean that Jimmy is going to get shot in the head Uncut Gem style, but he could get caught by the authorities and thrown in jail for the rest of his life. Personally, it seems most natural to get an ending that falls somewhere in the middle of the two. Maybe Jimmy takes the advice that he himself once gave to Walt about facing the music with his head held high, and represents himself in one final display of his Saul Goodman skills in court. He still goes to jail, but at least he won't be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life like he was in Nebraska. Maybe Kim is the one who ends up representing him. Who knows? So those are some of my predictions for the rest of Better Call Saul Season 6. If you want to hear me talk about the show more in depth, then consider tuning in to Is It Peak, where I discuss each episode as they come out with some other Saul experts. Thanks for watching.